All right, we'll call to order the January 19th, 2023 Beaufort County Airports Board meeting. And if you'll all please rise and join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get started, just like to welcome back Rich Sells, who was I don't know how many years you were on the board, but it was a bunch of years, and the board's chairman for a long period of time. He saw the light, left the area, decided he better come back, so welcome back. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. And let me just check. Ian, you can hear us. Wave at us if you can. Thank you. Everybody received a copy of the agenda, today's agenda. Any comments, changes, additions to the agenda? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda as published. Chris, Mark? Second, all approved. Signatures, say aye or raise your hand for Ian. And Nick, you can also hear us? Wave it, thank you. The motion is approved. Same thing on the minutes. Everybody received a copy of the November minutes. You'll recall we didn't have a December meeting. Any corrections, changes, addition to the November minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes. And Leslie seconds, thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising hands. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We have a big public today, unusual, but very nice. We now move to the public portion of the meeting, which allows 3 minutes for anybody considered part of the public to address the board, make any statements. And I remind board members that this is an opportunity for the public to speak to us, not necessarily to rebut. So anybody here would like to speak, statement, or address the board, now is the time to do it. Hearing none, we'll move on. John, Director's report.
Looks like everybody just came to listen to you, Howard. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. And let's see, we'll just kind of get into this report here. That's all. We don't have any action items today. As I was saying before the meeting to a couple of you, we had some kind of towards the end of the year that kind of rolled across the holidays, and we addressed in the first council meeting of this year. So we'll get some more moving here in the next couple of months, but we'll update you on what's been going on anyway. And let's see, there we go. I need to move this. I can't see my notes with the view screen the way it is, so let me see if I can move things around. Move my window. I just need to move their screen somewhere.
How about there?
That's good. Okay. Let's try and do it on this computer. Well, that'll work for now until mine does show up on that side. I'll drag it back over.
Just use the mouse.
All right, gotcha. Variety is the spice of life. I can't make them all look the same, you know? I mean, how boring would that be? All right, so let me get back to my presentation here. I guess it's a screen share. All right, I think I'm in the right place. Anyway, we'll see if this works. All right, just general update first. We are in the midst of budget season, which is typical for this time of year. So what we'll do, I know what we normally do is have a couple of members of the board meet with us as we develop the budget. So if I remember correctly, our budgets are due to the county in the beginning of February. So we'll get our work done and then get in touch, Howard, with you, I suppose, and organize a meeting like we did last year and just brief maybe 2 Hilton Head reps, 2 Beaufort reps maybe, and let you know where we stand on the budget, answer any questions you may have, and then that budget works its way through the wickets at the county level for the next couple of months and gets approved by council in the beginning of June. So we'll have time to take question and answer there. Second item there, that Marine Corps Skill Bridge program. This is kind of an interesting deal. We're going to benefit from this program coming up starting in March. But DOD has this program now where if there's a Marine, in our case, since we've got the Marine bases here, a Marine who's transitioning off active duty, they can sign up for this program, and it's basically an on-the-job training / internship type program that costs us as the employer nothing because the service member is still active duty, still receiving full pay and benefits from the federal government. So we're going to have a gunnery sergeant from the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort who is an operations chief on the airfield, and he's a Part 139 specialist out there, which is great. He's going to come work with us for several months. The only stipulation we had in his agreement was the CO wanted him to come back for the air show because he runs the operations for the air show. So we'll give him up for a couple of weeks, let him work the air show, and then come back to us. But we're going to have the gunny work with us both at Hilton Head and at Beaufort Executive to kind of get flavor of both airports and really tap into his Part 139 knowledge, especially at Hilton Head. That'll be a big advantage to us. A little bit of a differentiation between what the military does, Part 139, as to what we do, but for the most part, very similar. So he's got years of experience, and he'll be able to help kind of teach our crew as he's learning about our airfield. So really looking forward to that. And I think we've got him through, what, July or August, something like that?
Yes.
So, yeah, we have them for several months, which is fantastic. And then there's no obligation in that program to hire the folks either. So you kind of get a chance to do on-the-job training and get to know each other and find out if maybe there will be a fit moving forward. So it's a great opportunity for us, and we're really looking forward to having the gunnery sergeant join us. So we'll probably drag him to a board meeting at some point so you can meet him. And then the last item there, that supplemental discretionary grant opportunity, is something that came up just before the new year, and this is tied with some more of that federal aid that gets released every so often, and this has been programmed into the FAA's budget, and it's, like it says, it's a supplemental discretionary grant. So what that means is it's an unscheduled opportunity for funding. So we are putting in an application for the Hilton Head Island Airport and one for Beaufort Executive Airport. For airports our size, there's a window of funding that's available, and that's from $20 million to $70 million. We're not sure how much, but that's kind of what the boundaries are set in the application package by the FAA. So we don't know. So we're going to apply for our first share of that and see if we can get a couple of projects funded some more at both of the airports. But we don't want to leave any funding opportunity unrequested, so to speak. So. Right. No, that's total available in this competitive program. So, so we'll make our shot at it. I mean, we have benefited from this on the tower program at Hilton Head. There was a competitive grant that we applied for last year, and we did receive funding. So we're not sure that we receive it for that, but we did. So
what projects are you proposing to grant?
For Hilton Head, we're proposing the terminal. So additional funding for the terminal. And then over at Beaufort Executive, it's the safety projects for the runway safety areas and the mitigation there. So that's.
Is that be enough to get that phase 2 terminal back?
Well, it should. It'll be, I mean, depending on how the awards go, there's really very vague guidance. So we don't know if you apply for a certain amount, if there are partial awards or if it's all or nothing. There's very little guidance, and actually our folks in Atlanta at the ADO and the FAA really haven't received much guidance either. They just encouraged us, hey, if you have some good projects, go ahead and apply for them. So we're doing that. That's due January 31st, and we're actively working on those applications. So we'll make sure that no funding opportunity goes unpursued. Any questions there before we get into specific airports? If not, We'll head north to Beaufort Executive, tell you what's going on there, and then we got to drag you guys back across the screen. Find my mouse. All right, where'd you go? That's true. Well, I tell you what, I can read my text. I can't. How do I find this guy? Where's my mouse? There it is. All right, here we go, guys. I'm gonna put you right in the wet spot. There you go. Okay. All right, so let's talk about Beaufort Executive. Hangar development. Been talking about this for years. It's moving forward, which is great. We've got a design in hand at this point, and we're going to tweak that a little bit because we had a local engineering firm lay all that out for us, and these are additional T hangars adjacent to the T hangars just over to the right of Ian's head, where the T hangars are. So we're looking at doing a couple of buildings there, and as we laid that out, we took those, site civil engineering plans, sent them to Talbot, Bright, and Ellington, and they kind of truthed them out for us and put the FAA dimensioning on there, the different clearances that we need for object-free areas, wingspan clearance, things like that. So we've truthed that out, and we've made some modifications to the plans. We're going to talk with our design team tomorrow, and we've met with Chris about it to just bounce it off of him and get his thoughts. And we're going to try to move forward with that. We may have to phase it depending on how much funding we eat up. We do know that at least the site improvements, the horizontal portion of the project, will be eligible for state grant funding on a 60-40 split. So we'll certainly apply for that funding. But we'll put this plan together. But the good news is this is moving forward. We're going to use some of the ARPA relief funds that the county has to fund the first. I think we've got $1.5 million of ARPA funds that we're going to use to fund this. So we'll get as much of this done as we can in the first shot.
Where do we stand on the ground lease opportunity?
Ground lease opportunity is still wide open. We have not received any applications from folks as of yet.
Yeah, there's still, I talked, actually, I had one on Southline on another matter, and we were discussing that. And there still was the same, it was a group of, I think it was 4 people, and they're not on the same page on how they want it to work. And then on top of that, the steel pricing still is a little bit higher than the one according to that.
Yeah, hanging right there with that aircraft.
Yes, looking at investment opportunities, but I told them I'd be interested if they came in on a different way of doing it and trying to work on with the airport as well on there's certain pieces of equipment that are going to be needed, but then what has to be decided is, okay, how's that going to work on maintenance and management of that equipment if the county employees are going to use it, and then taking planes in and out in a big box hangar, and then trying to allow them to do overnight and reap some income on both sides for that. So I think
Basically, a lukewarm opportunity.
currently, but there's still some other people I'm still talking to, just trying to get them fired. No one seems to have, interest rates haven't helped us, and neither has the steel prices.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still out there.
Yeah.
Yep. Terminal improvements and landscape improvements out there would be something that if you haven't been there, and I think some of you have been there to see the inside of the building, the outside of the building has been painted. We've got logos coming in for the inside of the building behind the service counter and for the outside of the building, so that as you arrive at the airport, you'll know you're in the right place. And then the landscaping improvements are going to happen the next few weeks here. So we'll have a full new landscape package on both sides of that building. So it'll look like a complete new place. So we're looking forward to that. And really that's been made possible on a 60-40 grant split again with South Carolina Aeronautics Commission. So if you run into a commissioner, Howard next to you, Chris next to you, please thank a commissioner. I know Ann probably didn't get the vote on these because she has to recuse herself for hours, but she does all the work behind the scenes to make sure it happens in Columbia. But in all seriousness, if you talk to anybody with aeronautics, thank them for this, because aeronautics primarily works with general aviation airports to get this kind of thing done, to make these general aviation airports nicer. So this is a transformation of Beaufort Executive. It really is, inside and out. So we're looking
While you're
forward.
on that airport, what's the future for the Frogmore logo? If we look at our website pages for Hilton Head Airport and elsewhere, Hilton Head Island Airport comes up with our nice new logo, but Beaufort Executive comes up with a Frogmore logo. So what's the intent going down the road with that logo?
Well, that's still the local favorite. The Frogmore is the local favorite for the logo. So it's our intent to keep that as, it's still kind of a nickname. It's not the official name for the airport, but folks who fly in and certainly all the locals know it as Frogmore. So we intend to keep that. I think we would have a significant amount of pushback if we decided we were going to change the full branding on that airport. So we're a little bit conflicted. We're not using the normal branding protocols where you pick a brand and go with it the way we have it at Hilton Head Island Airport. But I think it's a little bit of a different case at Beaufort Executive. You'll see the inside branding when we get that put up, and it is very executive looking. But we want to maintain that laid back and in the fun atmosphere there as well. So we will keep that logo as, so if you buy a ball cap and a coffee cup, which you should, because we have full color coffee mugs with a nice logo on the back and a saying on the other side, you should have one of those. Your desk is not complete without it. If you drink sodas from time to time, we have koozies for you to keep your hand warm in the wintertime and keep your sodas cold in the summertime. So get one of those. You'll notice that it's the frog on those. That is the logo that folks want to see out there. So we're keeping that.
So just to pursue that just a little bit further, Mark, any other feelings with regard to how we brand Beaufort Executive? We went through the name change, and that worked out well. The concern is that our local pilots, of course, are very familiar with the Frogmore name, but transient pilots may or may not be. So how do we meld those two together to keep our local folks happy and keep it familiar, but also make our transient pilots who are transiting up and down the coast or coming from the west learn about the Beaufort Executive name? There must be a way to meld those two, keeping Frogmore, but also promoting Beaufort Executive.
Put the frog on top of the jet.
Well, I really think that, and Chris can speak to this too, but as pilots are making their, and Mark, you as well, as you're looking up airport information on the different apps, you're not going to get Frogmore. You're going to get Beaufort Executive.
Yeah, Beaufort Executive. And I will tell you, I just got it 2 weeks ago with an air traffic controller asking me about Frogmore. Yeah, if you're going in there a lot, you probably wouldn't hear as much as you're coming into Hilton Head, but probably 2 to 3 times a year, I'll get somebody on air traffic control asking me about, so how's Frogmore doing, and that type of thing. So it's still brought out there, and I think the branding thing, my opinion of it is, when I'm looking at flight planning, I'm looking at where is the closest destination, and I don't really look, I see what's on for flight, and that's what I use. That's Beaufort Executive when I'm officially using it. But when I get down and I'm talking to people, a lot of times people bring up Frogmore. That's the first thing that they'll say is they bring up Frogmore. They don't bring up Beaufort Exec. I've had very few people notice that it got changed to Beaufort Exec, but I do have a lot of people that ask about Frogmore. Who have flown in at some point, and for whatever reason, they picked up on it very, very quickly that Frogmore used to be the name that everybody kind of used. The slang term, let's call it. But yeah, it's still out there, and people still ask me about it.
So the consensus is everybody's comfortable.
Yeah.
Fine.
You just got to get in the right pond.
Yeah, that's right. We have had no one land at the wrong place because there apparently is not a real Frogmore somewhere else within the United States.
Yep. So not typical, but it works for us. So we're going with it. Next is the runway rehab, and that design is in progress now. Talbot Bright Ellington is working on that, so we'll continue with that. And then the next stage of that project is it will go to the FAA for their reviews, and then we would bid that and build it. Now the FAA they did institute a waiting period now in between design and construction. So we'll design it this year. We'll basically have a year off, and then we'll bid and build that project. And that's something we push back on with the FAA, but they said there's got to be that time period in between so that they can do all their design reviews.
That project is dealing with the rehab of the runway, not the extension of the runway, is that
No,
is that
it's just a
correct?
rehab of the existing runway. Yep. And then finally, I want to make sure everybody knows South Carolina Breakfast Club. We've been on their list for a couple of years now. Last year we had awful weather and we had to cancel. It's a tough time of year to do it, but we're praying for a day like today. So Sunday, February 5th at 9 o'clock. Marlene is kind of running that from our office. She's got an RSVP out there to the Breakfast Club. It is open to the public, but we really cater first and foremost to the Breakfast Club because it's an actual organization that will fly in. They'll actually conduct a business meeting at the breakfast. And so they're counting on the airport to host them. So where we do want some locals to come and enjoy that and open up the airport for them, this is not meant to be an open house. This is a meeting of the Breakfast Club. If there's seats left over, we want public to join us. So bit of a balancing act figuring that out, but we've got an RSVP out there, so hopefully we can plan adequately. And yours truly will be flipping burgers and cooking eggs and sausage that morning. So Steve will be out there. We're all just kind of teaming up to make that happen. Board members are more than welcome if you'd like to slap on an apron and come out there and help us. Or if you want to come out and eat, you can certainly do that too. It's going to be $10 a plate. So, and that's a standard Breakfast Club deal. So we're very happy to be on that calendar. We want to put our best foot forward. We're going to bring people in through the new Terminal 2. We toyed with where to hold this, if we want to do it down by the hangars like we did a couple years ago, or do it by the terminal. We opted, Steve said, hey, let's do it at the terminal. We'll have a tent outside, but we'll also have the opportunity to bring people in through the terminal so that they can not only see the terminal, but have a chance to buy that coffee cup, Howard, and, and the koozie and a sweatshirt and a ball cap and everything else they need to take back home to people. So we're big on merchandise sales up
The airplane will be over gross by then.
Say again?
Airplane will be over gross weight by then.
Well, that's, we won't feed them seconds. How's that? All right, any questions on Beaufort Executive?
Yeah, one more, and where do we stand on our personnel issue? We
For the
short,
supervisor, that is still gapped right now. It's not really hurting us. I'll tell you, we've talked about this a lot. And so we're still actively searching for someone to move into that role. But our line techs have stepped up out there, and they're doing a fantastic job day in and day out. And then Steve and Marlene have kind of been able to take an opportunity to look at that business kind of inside and out and revamp some things that really needed to be revamped and cleaned up and formalized. And what that's going to allow us to do is have a real solid, smoothly working system in place for when that new person comes in. So they can fall in on a system that is working and operating properly and not have to build that system. So we're trying to look at that glass as half full, and we're taking our time to make sure we find the right person.
is anybody acting in that capacity at the moment, or is that just a vacant position?
It's a vacant position right now. Yeah, we haven't officially dubbed Steve as acting or what have you, but in his job description, that's there. In my job description, I mean, that's what we do. So, so we've got it covered though.
Follow on to the terminal improvements issue you talked about. It's kind of tangential. What about the parking lot?
Parking lot, let's see, what do we have going there? We're dealing with working with the stormwater department with the county, and they're going to be doing some work. They just have to schedule it and get back to us as far as cleaning up some of the areas that, we took a few of the pine trees out along there, and they're going to come back in and finish that work up. But we've got them working at the north end. I'm sure you've seen where they're
Yes.
removing that hill out there. So they know what we need to have done in that parking lot. And potentially we'll do a project. We're trying to look at timelines and make sure it makes sense to do kind of a rehab of that pavement. That's something that we could potentially use some of those local grant dollars to do. We just have to weigh the timing of that, because at some point in the future, as the hangars get developed and everything starts to happen in that area, that parking lot will actually move.
Right.
So we're trying to do a little bit of a balancing act there, but we'll maintain it until such point as we either decide to pull the trigger on a rehab or just start with a
Right.
new
We don't want to spend too much money, but the area with the tree damage is
Yep.
is rough.
Yep, so those pine trees, anything that hasn't had the stump ground, I think it's just one, that stump will be ground, and then that'll be made into a parking spot, and then the other areas will be smoothed out, and I think we'll put probably some permeable pavement material in there. So, but that's working pretty well. Steve instituted a paid parking program out there too, so we kind of have, long-term and short-term parking, and that's working really well. Folks have been real receptive to that program. And we maintain the set of keys in the terminal, and and make sure that folks' cars are ready to go when they need them. So that's been a good program too. So good things happening there. Anything else? I got to guess which way I'm moving you guys now. I think I'm going to move you over here. No, I got to get back. Now, which way do I go, left or right? There we go. All right. Oh, I guessed wrong. I had a 50-50 shot, but now I know where it is. All right, we're gonna tuck you over there. Yeah, look at those tails. The good picture of the tails. That shot is from when the conquistadors came 2 years ago, and this is a reminder they're coming again this year, theoretically, right, guys? So we will have lots of jet fuel on hand, and we will work with the FAA because we obviously had to close the taxiway to make that happen. But we're looking forward to that in May, right? So that'll be a big deal. You can talk to Ann on a sidebar after this if you want to about some of the SCAC allocation for terminal funding. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of that, and mostly because a good bit of that was decided in executive session at the commission meeting in December. But if you recall, not late last year, it was June, July of last year, the General Assembly came up with a $53 million one-time allocation of funds to Aeronautics Commission to be split up among several different programs. At the end of that split, $40 million was available to the 6 commercial airports. From the very beginning, Hilton Head Island Airport applied for an even split. Originally, that was a $50 million, and we applied for 8.3. It was down to 40. We applied for 6.66. At the end of all the deliberations and the formulas that were discussed and worked out, Hilton Head Island Airport's ending up with $3 million out of that $40 million allocation. Again, the ingredients are a little bit too complicated to talk to in this meeting, but after much, wailing and gnashing of teeth, we'll get a $3 million allocation, which will apply to our terminal project. There is a possibility that that one-time funding will turn into recurring funding. We're hopeful for that. So if you are at all disposed to speaking with your delegation, your members in Columbia, please do that and encourage them to continue to fund the commercial airports. While we need that for our own specific projects, the state needs that as a whole, because if you look outside the boundaries of the state, we've got North Carolina and Georgia who are aggressively funding their commercial airports. We are nowhere near competing with what they do right now. And we've got to be able to compete with those 2 states. So if you do talk to members of the delegation, please encourage them to make that a recurring line item. And that way we'll benefit from that year over year.
John, how is North Carolina and Georgia funding their airport development? Where are the funds
I don't know
coming
where
from?
their funds come from specifically. I'd have to research that to let you know. It could be through the airline taxes. They may have, a special line item in their general fund that goes, I don't know. So I'd have to do some research to find that out. But the State Council on Competitiveness has been researching that and developed a white paper last year. I don't think it's been made public, but there are some proposals on how our state can try to not necessarily catch up, but at least get on a program to fund the commercial airports so that eventually we become more competitive with our neighboring states. All right, and we just took Florida out of the mix because it's incredible how much money those commercial airports get. Project that we're working with now is Taxiway Foxtrot. That's in design, and that'll be under construction probably, Judy, correct me, later on this year, right? Later on this calendar year. So we'll have to bid that in the springtime, hopefully have grant award, and usually they're mid to late summer, and then get ready to move on that project. So that'll be the full length of Taxiway Foxtrot being rebuilt.
That's a widening project?
It is not a widening project, just a rehab. And then just kind of brief you on a tentative timeline for the terminal. Howard asked me about this before the meeting. As you remember, we bid the project last year. We hit it exact wrong time with inflation and all the issues going on. So we're rebidding that in phases. So the first phase we'll go out to bid. We're looking at now probably the end of February. We'll fine tune that if we need to, but that's the target now. So end of February to have that on the street to bid. Probably 6 to 8 week bid period, and then assuming we get some good responses, then we'll move towards getting into contract and getting that project underway. So I don't want to guess when ground gets broken on that, because it totally depends on who's selected as a contractor and what those schedules look like. But from what we control from design and bidding, it looks like we should have that wrapped up probably in the May timeframe.
Isn't there a deadline on the FAA grant money for that? The $10 million, when is that
There is.
deadline?
Each grant from the FAA's got a 4-year period of performance. So we've still got time on our grants. The initial $10 million grant, our first one, I think we've got a year and a half maybe left on that one, so we should be in good shape there.
That's to completion?
No,
Or-
that's just
or
to use the
underway?
grant funds. Just to use the funds.
Okay.
So we've already used some of the funds because we're designing the building. So that's for design and first phase of construction. So we won't have any problem making that deadline. All right, so that's terminal. Any questions on the terminal? We've been talking about that for a long time, big project. Well, that's what we know right now.
So if you had a guesstimate, if bids go out in February, if you had a guesstimate, assuming the bids, at least one of the bids was successful, shovel in the ground.
I already told you I'm not going to guess on that.
I keep
I'm not going to
trying.
guess on that, Howard. Yep, I don't know, because that's going to be up to contractors, and there's too many forces beyond my control, so yeah, I can't
Okay.
speculate. All right, if nothing else on the terminal, the tower project, I alluded to that before when we talked about the other grant opportunities. This is through the AIG competitive grant program that's out there. It's a 5-year program, so each year they release a new opportunity. We got this on the first year, which is great. It's 100% grant, so there's no local match, which is fantastic. That project is out for bid now. We actually open bids next Tuesday, so we're looking forward to that. That's going to get some new gear in that tower. If you've been up there or talked to the controllers, you know that they're working on technology that was installed in 2004, but was probably already obsolete when it was installed. So those poor fellows have been dealing with old push-button equipment and things like that. So we're going to try to time warp them forward into modern times with some new equipment. So
I know this is not part of that project because we've talked about it before, but it's kind of tangential too, the idea of expanding a radar scope into that tower. Is that still
That's an
percolating?
ongoing discussion. No real headway going on there. I'll tell you that the shout line is making some progress. So
Okay.
to have a direct line between our airport and Beaufort from the air station, that's moving forward, and that's actually, thank goodness, out of our hands. It's being handled by DOD and FAA folks right now, and they're arguing back and forth. But it looks like that's at least got an email every week
It's a
or so
start.
that comes through. So it's got some action on it, and we'll see what happens from there. As far as radar goes, that's going to be a fight that we continue to work on. But yeah, it's definitely, it doesn't get any favorable looks from the FAA. I met with the person who would work with us on that project from the FAA in December, and he said, you know, unless you can find it a different way, it won't work through an existing FAA program. So we'll get creative. What that meant to me was not no, it's just not going to be easy, which is okay. We'll still work on it. Okay, air service update. I just want to tell you quickly, I spoke with, I have a monthly check-in with our consultants at Volair just to find out how things are looking industry-wide, but then specifically with regards to airports like Hilton Head Island as a regional, with regional service. It's still pretty rough out there from the pilot and crew shortage standpoint. A lot of those pilots are obviously being enticed to move up to the mainline systems with excellent salary and bonus opportunities. So regionals are having a real tough time filling their flight crews. So we see that. It trickles down to the regional airports. If you pay attention to the announcements, you'll see every now and again a city's going to lose service from an airline that had previously served them. So far, we're holding steady. United and Delta have a little bit less service than they have in years past, but American's holding steady, and they're going to, again, be our strongest carrier coming through the summer. But it looks like, you know, we'll see probably at least 1 to 2 more years of what we saw this past summer, with numbers about half of what we had in '21. And that's just because we've got the regional aircraft and the shortage. So they're having to make decisions on where to move the airplanes around.
Has either carrier, John, committed to specific service yet, or is it still too early in the season for them?
It is generally the same as last year. Trying to think of any cities that are not coming back. I think we have generally the same. I don't think we're going to have Dulles this year. I think United's just going to Newark.
How about, we had Dulles and National at one time, we had American.
We'll
and
have
United.
National. American will
We'll
still
have
fly
National
National.
and
Still have
Dulles?
Chicago. We will not have Dulles.
Dulles out.
But all the rest, it looks like they'll be back, at
LaGuardia?
least with weekly.
We had Delta LaGuardia at one time.
Yes, we'll have LaGuardia in Atlanta do Delta. Yep.
And United,
So
yeah.
it'll be, like I said, almost the same cities, but a little bit different schedule. So it's a challenge out there for the regionals, no doubt. I just want to let you know what the air service looks like. And then Adopt a Highway, I don't remember if we talked about this before, but airport staff picked up the Adopt a Highway responsibilities on Hunter Road, right where our office is. So we do that whole road now. And what we do is we do our thing, we go out there, put on all the vests, pick up the trash, and then we meet for breakfast and do a little fellowship and training after that. But we thought that was important because previously Stoneworks had done the Adopt a Highway out there, and they did a great job for years. As you may recall, that's one of the businesses that we had to relocate because we purchased their property as part of our expansion plan, and then they relocated up to Port Royal in a great facility up there. But we thought it was important to pick that up. So we've done that, and Marlene organizes that in our office, and it's an opportunity for everybody to just kind of go out there and do our community service. So if you see us out there in the orange vest, it's not because we got in trouble. We're not on the chain gang, okay? We volunteered for it. It's all good. No pictures allowed, that's right, yeah. Yeah, but it's fun. So we go out there, mix it up, and have a good time. And then finally, just we're having a visit at the airport. Thank you to Leslie for arranging this. But on the 1st of February, we're going to have the new mayor of Hilton Head Island. We're going to have our new county council member, Tom, and help me with your last name again. Reitz. Tom Reitz is going to be there. We'll also have the town manager, Mark Orlando. We'll have Councilman McKellen out there because we're in his district. And then we'll have Eric Greenway from the county out there as well. So great opportunity to kind of give an in-brief to our new elected officials, let them see inside the airport, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think it's important that they see, what we are and where we can be. And then, and of course, we'll show them all the renderings of the new facility. But it's important that they see the airport from the inside out, understand what their residents and tourists are seeing and experiencing when they're in there. So great opportunity to do that, and I thank all of them in advance, and I thank Leslie for setting that up and coordinating with our CEO and with the town and county and everybody to get it lined up. So thank you for that. All right, questions on Hilton Head? All right, I think that's all I've got here.
Yeah, I've got one question.
Yeah.
John, we've been somewhat remiss on the GA side, which we've talked about, and Steve and I have talked about. Actually, I owe Steve a phone call on that. But there are some maintenance issues on the GA side which have not been attended to, some of which I go back 7 years in talking about, more specifically the dirt areas between the hangars on the south hand, the county hangars, and some of the hangar conditions on the interior and some on the exterior up on the roof where skylights are basically black. What, if anything, is happening on the GA side on maintenance issues?
Well, I know that you've been invited out there, so please set up that meeting, because we talk about it every time you come here. We need to have a meeting
I've been
at the
remiss in
airport.
getting with Steve, yeah.
So let's do that first, and we have been through all those hangars, and we've inspected all the insides of the hangars. I think we did it in the fall. I know Dan's been through there, and Steve's been through. So we've taken a look at everything, and we do. Our guys pay attention to the maintenance requests when they come in. We hear from tenants if something's wrong with the hangar, and we take care of it. So, I don't know of anything else with the building themselves that are needing attention, but you're more than welcome to come out and see us. And along with everything else, everything gets in line with the priorities and safety and funding and what we can do to balance everything. So, I'd love to say we're flush with cash and doing every project as quickly as we can, but we do have to pace ourselves. So it's still on the list, Howard, and we do have some focus over there, but please go ahead and set up that meeting and come out and see us.
I will do that. I said, it's my end that failed, not Steve's end that failed.
Okay.
All right, then the final question, Soar Point. Back in November, we had two presentations from potential additional operators at the airport. John, you were kind enough to write them a letter asking them to hold off. Now's not the time, reminding them that they shouldn't be wasting their money in developing extensive plans when you're not ready to consider additional operators there. We got another touch base note from one of the folks a couple of weeks ago. I assume you got it addressed to you. Don't know if you had a chance to answer that. But I'm not quite understanding the hesitation in exploring the issue when we have a valuable opportunity, perhaps too early to tell whether they're credible, in expanding fixed base operations at HXD. I know where you stand. I'm not sure I'm understanding where you stand.
Okay. Happy to answer a question if you have one. If we don't understand each other, I don't know that we can get that.
Why are we
fixed.
not exploring the opportunities that may exist?
Well, we are. We're exploring the opportunities. It's absolutely critical. I've said here and in other venues and probably in that letter that with the limited amount of land that's at that airport, we've got to make sure we've got the highest and best use. That's our beachfront property.
I
So,
think we all
yes,
under- yeah, I think we
yes,
all
we're going to be
understand that.
slow. Yes, we're going to be deliberate, and we're going to be intentional. So we're not necessarily going to dance with the first person who stands up. So we willing to look at everything, but not necessarily willing to make a quick decision on all those.
Yeah, nobody's looking for that, I don't think, but I think we're looking for some path forward rather than a generic, we're not ready yet.
Okay, well, we are working with the Economic Development Corporation, and we've got folks inside the county that we work with as well to look at that, and then, of course, it all has to fit within the master plan. So we have to be careful and conscious of that as well. So with all that considered, it is on our project list. We do work on that.
Okay.
I have a question regarding that. Because of the side that it's on, is there any potential of whatever you decided to do with it? If it was GA, would it affect the commercial side at all? Is there any reason why you would possibly, one of the reasons to go slow, besides trying to do the right thing, is it going to affect commercial operations? Is there anything for commercial on that side based on where they're looking at?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, we get philosophical here, but if you were to look out 30, 40 years, who's to say there's not
Right.
something that could block it? And literally, that's what we need to do. We're not working on a 3 to 5 year plan. We've got to look out as far ahead as you can. I'll give you an example of that. I met with the airport director for Piedmont Triad a couple of months ago up at Charlotte at a seminar where we both presented, and he talked about they've got a 40 and 50 year master plan. And it's a good thing they did because they planned for an interstate going through their airport and how to work that into a runway extension plan. It was a 40-year plan. That's being developed now. Had they not done that properly, they wouldn't have that extension and they wouldn't have an interstate. So, maybe an extreme example, but it's a reason to just kind of be cautious and make sure that you look as far ahead as you can, realizing that we've got, and they have almost unlimited real estate out there. We have extremely limited real estate here. So we've got to be very careful and deliberate with what we do. And there's a whole lot of people that need to be consulted before we decide to move forward on something.
Okay.
All right, that's all I've got for the report.
All right, thank you, John. Excellent job, as usual. Unfinished business. Any board member, or John or Steve, any unfinished business on the table? Hearing none. New business? It's a quiet meeting this time around, so no new business, as John noted on the agenda. No action items. And as far as the chairman's update, as far as I know, haven't heard from the committee head, so I'm assuming no committee reports this month.
I'll just give one quick report on it. Is the gate's working now, operational? I saw the gentleman out there, I think from the county. So the gate close your ears, Howard, you're not going to hear this. ARW gate is working. that hadn't been working for a few months. The other thing was the gentlemen from FAA were in. Luckily, I was in town and able to talk to them a little bit about and get a better understanding of the safety areas and what all goes through for these guys. I got a big education. Walked out with a bigger hat size than I walked in with, so a lot of knowledge there. I understand it a lot better.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? Okay, no chairman, no committee reports. We once again go back to our citizens' opportunity to address the board and John and Steve. Any comments from anybody? All right, hearing nothing, I will accept a motion to adjourn the meeting. There's Chris and Ann, do a second. Meeting, oh, last chance, don't forget, February 23rd, Beaufort, our next board meeting. Thank you, meeting adjourned.